Ladies and gentlemen, while Democrats debate whether to have a virtual convention, and while Biden is in his basement 24/7, President Trump addressed West Point graduates today, and it's a beautiful thing. President Trump addresses, this is CNN, Trump addresses socially distanced West Point graduation. So, New York Times, this is CNN, New York Times, graduating West Point cadets isolate for 2 weeks ahead of Trump's speech. And it's like they're trying to make it, of course, this big deal, this big problem. President Trump addressing West Point graduates there is a lot better than the vapid, really sad and pathetic video conferences from celebrities and former Democratic politicians, whether it's Madam Secretary, who will be nominee. So Clinton's going to be nominee. Okay, they're not going with Biden. How it happens, can't tell you. But I can tell you that Clinton will be nominee. She'll be on that ballot in 2020 opposing President Trump, and she'll lose again. President Trump will get reelected. Share my Times of Israel article, Hillary Clinton, not Biden, will be nominee. That's below in the pinned comment. And share my Huffington Post article, Hillary Clinton 2020 is a reality. Get ready for 8 years of Trump. That's written in 2017. I will have predicted all of this in 2017. But anyway, and subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel. I have a great segment on there. And my other channel, H.A. Goodman's Hyperbole Translator, which I'll do something with. Who knows what I'll do with it, but I'll do something with it. But 60% of veterans voted for President Trump in 2016. Okay? Only 34% voted for Clinton. Now, 60% of veterans voted for President Trump. Okay? He won the vote of veterans in 2016 by almost 30 points. It wasn't even close. And Democrats have no clue why anyone would vote for President Trump, and they keep on trying to assign and attribute messages or subliminals or some kind of political motive when he tweets something, and then they fabricate a bigoted or, horrific undercurrent or subliminal message when it suits them. But then when the actual political message that he's trying to convey is shared on social media, they ignore it. When President Trump says law and order, he's not only speaking to all Americans who need law and order to protest peacefully. You cannot, if there's constant chaos and mayhem and $1.4 billion in property loss, according to one insurance estimate, around the U.S. and over 10,000 people in police custody around the U.S., you can't have entirely peaceful protests, which is only what media and Democrats have harped on. And then they ignore the inconvenient truths. But you have 60% of veterans who voted for President Trump who want law and order. That is important for all people, especially military people, okay? Because you have to have a functioning society. Okay, you can't have autonomous zones. You can't have all of these, and Democrats, it's interesting. They look at scary protesters holding rifles as the same as just as threatening or alarming as as stores being broken into and bricks being thrown into windows. They view that like just exercising your constitutional right in states that allow you to open carry. And California used to be one of them. And that actually was if you go back as to why California isn't an open carry state, that actually was a bigoted a bigoted law that now prevents this. But anyway, you go and you look, 60% of veterans voted for President Trump, 34% voted for Clinton. He defeated Clinton, and he will defeat Clinton again by pretty much a margin of 2-1 in terms of the veteran vote. Now, if you look, ladies and gentlemen, at, then they say, well, half of active duty troops' opinions. The troops' opinion of Trump's heads down, so half of active duty soldiers. Well, Trump's 42% approval rating in the latest poll, some 50% of troops said they had an unfavorable view of him, but 42% had a favorable view. Okay, this is still infinitely better than President Obama. A lot better than President Obama. So, at one point in President Obama's administration, only 18% of soldiers had a positive view. And then it ended at 36%. So he's still above. Let's see. Well, overall, 60.3. No, actually less than that. 29%. Oh, no, about 38% or so. 37% said they had a favorable view in 2017 of President Obama. Okay, President Trump is still ahead in terms of active duty soldiers. And younger people, younger demographics generally tend to vote Democrat anyway. But overall, 60.3%. This is in 2017. Overall, 63% of Marines, 53% of the Army, 49% of the Air Force, 45.9% of the Navy said they disapproved of President Obama, a plurality in each case. Enlisted soldiers and Marines were more likely than officers to disapprove of President Obama by about 4 percentage points. In total, 29.1% said they had a very unfavorable view. Oh, I'm sorry. So no, not 30. I read this wrong. In total, 29.1% of soldiers said they had a very unfavorable view of President Obama's leadership, and 18% said they held a favorable view. So you have something like 18 to 30% of active duty soldiers having a favorable view of President Obama, and 42% supporting President Trump now. So the point is, ladies and gentlemen, you're asking American men and women to risk their lives, and in many cases, their lives, well, in thousands of cases, their lives have been lost. Their families have, made untold sacrifices. There have been hundreds of thousands of traumatic brain injuries, hundreds of thousands of PTSD cases. 1 million of the 2.5 million Americans who served in Iraq and Afghanistan have been injured in some way or another. That's one Business Insider article. I believe it's a Forbes article. But you have now President Obama, or President Trump, who signed a peace deal to end America's longest-running military conflict in Afghanistan in late February, early March. Nobody talked about it. But you're asking these people to be the epitome of bravery and heroism, which most are. And Biden can't even leave his basement. Then they try to say, oh, well, President Trump went into the bunker. Yeah, because of protests that were not peaceful. Any president would have. But they're petulant and malicious. Democrats are, you can look back at old late night talk show, I'm going to say old, 4, 5, 6 years ago. The reverence, the sappy nostalgia, this, it's not just late night talk shows, it's CNN, MSNBC, even Fox to a great extent. The manner in which they treated President Obama and even Bush, it's like they never did this. They never treated President Trump in the same manner. Every single day is devoted to how can we get Trump. It's never they're certain oh, President Obama visits a library. oh, this is fantastic. President Obama, goes to the vote. What was it? Signs up for jury duty. Oh my God, this is so great. It's so wonderful. He's such a wonderful, amazing person. Look, he's just like us. They can't even President Trump, eating like junk food or fast food is like viewed as some kind of anomaly, emanating from outer space. This extraterrestrial, why? How could he be eating? Oh my God, millions upon millions of people eat fast food every day. And then if Trump does it, it's they can't. What I'm trying to say is, I was looking at Stephen Colbert speaking to Joe Biden about why he didn't run, why he would never run for president in 2015, which also bolsters everything I'm saying. They're going to find a way to give the nomination to Hillary Clinton. Otherwise, they lose the popular vote and they would get obliterated because Biden in a debate would be Biden in a debate with Trump would be like a little goldfish versus a great white shark. But I'm trying to get it if veterans voted for Clinton 60% to 34% to Trump, which obviously is the opposite. 60% of veterans voted for President Trump. You would get even more of a push to kind of paint Trump as this unpatriotic. Already you get military leaders oppose Trump on this. And it's one or two military leaders. You're always going to have different viewpoints in the military. And then you're this former general, or this lieutenant general. Well, you're always going to get people high up in the military picking a side, choosing which side they think is beneficial for whatever reason, or, agreeing with Democrats or Republicans. The bottom line is the majority of soldiers have, I should say, President Trump has a much higher approval rating among active duty soldiers, but among veterans, it's not even close. 57% of veterans, according to one poll, approve of President Trump. 60% of veterans voted for President Trump. And I guess my long-winded point is that he's speaking to West Point graduates, and he's doing something Democrats would never do. And then the Democrats are trying to say, because of the pandemic, and then the Democrats are trying to say, oh, it was an inconvenience to these troops, to these future soldiers or these graduates. No, it wasn't. I'm sure it wasn't. I'm assuming it wasn't. Who wants a taped video message? This whole we're gonna look back at this. We're gonna look back at this era in American history or politics. This year, this actually 5-month, 6-month period, as a very we're gonna look back at this and say, okay, we couldn't have graduation ceremonies. We couldn't have all of these things. Did the mortality? Well, whatever. We'll talk about that. If you're healthy and young and healthy, at least the economy. Why did we need to shut down the entire United States economy and have 35 to 40 million people unemployed, when we could have just engaged in social distancing, worn masks, told vulnerable people, older people to quarantine, and have society function? But again, over half of all the lives lost are in 5 Democratic-run states. So it's just checked. It went from 3 to 5. The pandemic affects blue states infinitely more than it does everyone else. New York, New Jersey, Michigan, Illinois, that's 4. So about 4 states, it equals roughly half of all the lives lost. And then if you add Pennsylvania, that's over half of all the lives lost. 5 states run by Democratic governors. We have 50 states with 320 million people. 5 states, 3 to 5 states, equaled roughly over half of all the lives lost in the pandemic. Yet it's not a blue state issue. But you better believe if it was Alabama, Mississippi, West Virginia, Oklahoma, and Texas, they would have made this the biggest. And those states totaled half of all the lives lost in the entire country, according to the New York Times. Oh my God, they would have made this the blue state issue. I mean, a red state issue. And you better believe if 60% of veterans voted for Democrats, they've been harped even more about how President Trump is tarnishing long-standing values of this country. So Biden won't leave his basement, and when he does, he's surrounded by 2 or 3 people, and it's like everyone thinks that they're doing something so profound and courageous by like even listening to Biden. And by the way, I looked at his ads the other day. They literally have subtitles, and it's not for the hearing impaired because you could have closed caption. His ads have subtitles because nobody knows what he's saying. Okay, they're not going with Biden. You have to actually, to accept a nomination, you have to speak for about an hour, or like at least a half an hour to 40 minutes. This man would go off into Never Never Land. You know, I want to thank the founding mothers for, you know the deal, man. And, big shout out to the Loch Ness Monster and Spider-Man and also Yogi the Bear. Who knows what he would say? So Hillary Clinton's going to be nominee. The whole thing's going to is a charade. But, and I will have made the biggest political call of all time. Subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel also. That's below in the pinned comment. I did a lot of work on that. But my point is, you look at how veterans support President Trump and the fact that they voted for President Trump in overwhelming numbers, almost 2-1. And you see that the media spin is completely warped. Veterans generally don't want to see cities ablaze. They've risked their lives to ensure we didn't have this chaos and mayhem. And you can't, like, there could be a certain correlation to people are upset about injustices, but then don't say that David Dorn in St. Louis was murdered, or, in Missouri was murdered because of injustice, because that was an injustice in and of itself. And his life was taken in the most cruel and horrific manner. This is a 77-year-old former police captain in St. Louis. A black man, the epitome of heroism and courage and bravery. And he was murdered during peaceful protests that were about injustice. No, that's not. No, his life was taken by criminals who just wanted to take advantage of chaos and mayhem, which is what happens when society breaks down and there's no law and order and there's no rule of law. Democrats talk, they talk about how they really care about the lives of black people. Then why don't you speak about David Dorn? Because it doesn't fit their political narrative. If something doesn't fit the Democratic Party's political narrative, they won't talk about Tara Reade. They won't believe Tara Reade. They won't talk about the murder of David Dorn. They won't talk. They run on emotion and the pain and suffering of groups of voting groups. That's what they run on. But they don't offer any solutions to most demographics of voters. And so anyway, give me your thoughts below. Subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel. I have a segment up on there right now. Let's build that channel. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that it's beautiful that President Trump is addressing West Point, but remember something to my 20-minute crowd. From here on out, by the way, I don't have Facebook or Twitter. If you see anyone impersonating me, report them to Twitter or Facebook. But from here on out, you're going to see media as literally an extension of the Democratic Party. It won't be. One would think that media is a reflection of society and how society feels. When President Trump wins again, media will be exposed yet again for trying to create perception rather than report on the reality of how people feel. Give me your thoughts below. I will be back in a couple of hours or so for my live stream, and then of course a live stream later on this late this evening, and then earlier this evening I'll have a live stream, and then later in the wee hours of the night I'll have another live stream. Give me your thoughts below. Thank you.